Racehorses could not compare to how fast you bounded out of the elevator once the doors opened and sprinted to Midoriya's room. Your vision purposefully tunneled to stop yourself from making shapes of the shadows. You go straight for his door handle, but find the door was locked. You stared at it with annoyance. What did Midoriya have to hide? They all already knew about All For One and that he was All Might's secret love child. You look around the hallway hastily, not sensing any movement, but feeling as though the darkness was closing in. You bang on Midoriya's door, feeling too exposed and vulnerable on your own with this unknown lurking in the building. The revert click of Midoriya's door sounded, and the groggy freckled boy revealed himself in the doorway. "Bunny?" he mumbled, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Did something happen?" You calm a little now that you were no longer alone. "There's something in the dorms," you repeat. "A monster or a demon? We need to get out and call for help." Midoriya blinks at you, as though you spoke another language he did not understand. "Did you eat any of Zero's brownies? 'Cause you know those have—" "I am not high," you shout defensively. "Kirishima saw it too. Come on, we're evacuating. We're not getting signal in here and we need to get Aizawa-sensei and tell him what's going on." Midoriya leaned in, narrowing his eyes and looking directly into yours. You furrow your eyebrows, and then realize what he's looking for. "Are you trying to see whether my eyes are red?" He leaned back, chuckling sheepishly. "Sorry, just making sure. I've been victim to Zero's brownies before. Okay, let me just grab a flashlight. I think the power's out." Midoriya heads back into his room and you stand in his doorway restlessly, taking note of his massive All Might collection. "We think the monster cut it somehow." "Oh, it's smart," Midoriya said, the cogs in his brain turning. "Bunny, what does it look—" Midoriya paused, turning towards his mountain of All Might. He clicked on the flashlight in his hand and shone it on the shelves, his eyes shifting between the figures. "What's wrong?" you ask impatiently. "The others should be coming down the elevator soon." Nothing," Midoriya said dubiously. "It's just that—" Midoriya's head snapped to the next figure, jerking the flashlight towards its wide eyes. "It's not supposed to do that." You tense by the doorway, swallowing nervously. "Okay, Midoriya, let's just go. We'll figure out what's wrong with your collection later." He nods, backing away from the shelves cautiously. All at once, Midoriya's action figures began to shout their iconic phrase. You stumble away from his room, stunned by the horrific cacophony of All Might. "Come on, this has to be the monster or demon. Let's go before—" You cut off, stunned by the first of the mountain of All Might floating, followed quickly by the rise of its brethren. What looked like an army of 100 action figures rose to the air. You never thought you'd be afraid of those little quirky dolls, but as their inanimate eyes stared at Midoriya and you, frozen in midair, you were terrified. Suddenly, All Might's cartoonish smile was no longer a comfort, but your biggest threat. You reach into the room, grabbing onto Midoriya and yanking him out. He's heavy and he stumbles, causing you to falter. The army of All Might renewed their ominous chant. The phrase altered drastically to a demonic distortion. They advanced as a group, floating in formation as they tailed them. You right yourself just in time to catch the first flyer. The action figure bulleted to you, and you fling yourself forward to avoid it. It lodges itself into the wall, and you gape, astounded at how the blunt object had impaled itself in concrete. You didn't stare for long. The elevator dinged, and the All Might surged. You managed to strike a few down with your quirk, but there were just so many coming from all directions. You heard shouts from the elevator. Just as you were beginning to worry that they'd follow you out, you jerked backwards. Midoriya yanks you into his body, sparking green as he launches into a run. The air rushes around you, and you cringe away from its sting against your eyes. They find their way over Izuku's shoulder, meeting the All Might figures charging like the army's air force. You and Midoriya crash into the elevator, hear the ding to signal the door closing. Rising from the tangle of Midoriya's arms, you see the action figures nearing the metal doors, and they don't shut in time. One All Might figure sneaks in, bouncing off the metallic walls like a stray bullet. "What the fuck?" Katsuki yells, dodging it. "Make it stop!" Eijiro shrieks, hardening his skin in panic. You hear the surge of Todoroki's power, and the bang of Katsuki's explosion. The elevator quiets, now that the threat was singed and encased in ice. You exhaled, collapsing against the elevator wall. Only recovery breathing could be heard for a few moments, while their small group attempted to hold their panic. Katsuki broke the silence, staring at the figure with wide eyes. "Was that the Silver Age limited edition All Might figure?" he demanded in horror. Midoriya's mouth dropped open, his eyes swimming with heartbreak. "No," he moaned. "I waited in line for hours to get that." You glare at both of them. "This is not what we're supposed to be focusing on right now. Your little All Might figure just tried to give us a limited edition death." Judging by the pout on Midoriya's lips, it almost seemed like he would have preferred that over his destroyed figure. "I don't mean to interrupt your grieving, but is this also the monster's doing?" Todoroki asked. "I didn't see a monster this time. They just started moving on their own," you clarify. "Did anything happen when you went up to get Todoroki?" Kirishima shook his head. "It must be really scared of Bakugou." Bakugou rolled his eyes. "This is some fucking fake bullshit, and when I find out which one of you is messing with my impeccable sleep schedule, you will die." "You can't seriously not believe this anymore," you say irritably. "You just exploded a possessed All Might figure." "It must have malfunctioned," Bakugou said dismissively. Midoriya sulked. "It was too expensive to malfunction." "Alright guys, whether we believe or don't believe, we need to get Denki and get out before anything else decides to go haywire," Kirishima said firmly. The elevator dings open, and everyone except Bakugou stayed unmoving. Bakugou charged out. "Can you all stop being wimps?" Todoroki followed next, and one by one, the rest of you crawled out from the elevator. Bakugou banged on Denki's door brutally enough that you thought his hand may go through. "Dance face, open up!" Denki opened the door sluggishly, his lips wide with a dopey smile. Earthy musk permeated the air around him, and with the light from Midoriya's torch, they could see redness in his eye. "Did you guys come to join? Zero left his entire stash behind." "How did you get into his room?" Todoroki asked quizzically. Katsuki groaned. "Again with the stupid questions." He grabbed Denki's arm, yanking him from his doorway. "Let's go. You fucking stink." "Where are we going?" Denki asked, squinting his eyes. "There's something in the dorms. It was on our floor and it cut the power," you explained quickly. "It also made Midoriya's All Might figures attack us. We're going to get Aizawa." Denki blinked at you blankly. "I think I'm too high for everything you just said." "Todoroki, are you coming?" you hear Kirishima ask from behind you. Todoroki stared at his feet with furrowed eyebrows. "My foot, it's..." "What the fuck are you talking about, What the..." Katsuki stopped, glaring at his feet with shock. "Shit! We're sinking!" Your head snaps down to your feet, finding that you had sunk ankle-deep into the floor. You force your feet to the surface, finding it quickly sinking again as it touches new ground. Quickly, to the elevator! Midoriya yanks Todoroki from the ground, tugging him onto the more solid floor, and they ran for the elevator along with the rest of them. Kirishima stumbled on the unsteady ground, but Katsuki caught him. "Didn't I tell you to work on your balance?" he berated. "I don't normally have to fight villains with the ground being alive," Kirishima defended. You're a little behind everyone, but close to the elevator. Instinctively, you glance behind you to check for stragglers. You halt, noticing that Denki was caught in the sludge-like floor and sinking up to his knees. He seemed to be attempting to claw his way out, but also looking around like he could not comprehend what was happening. He's high, you remember. He must be thinking that this is all a hallucination. You move to grab him. "Denki!" Despite his predicament, he responds to you and reaches. You grab onto him, but pulling him out was not as easy as you thought. Just holding was taking effort, and while you tried to save him, you were slowly sinking. Green lightning sparks in the air, and you see Midoriya pounce onto the wall adjacent to them, and fling himself across the floor. Katsuki is right behind him, performing a similar technique with his explosions, and yanking you from the floor's clutches. They're on the melting ground again, and barreling towards the elevator. This time, Midoriya is holding Denki's hand. The elevator shuts behind them, and sighs of relief release themselves. "Still don't believe something's haunting the dorms?" you ask Katsuki. He shoots you a glare. They head down in silence, but once the doors to the common room open, Denki blurts out indignantly. "What the fuck was in that joint Zero gave me?"